Bole Baba Ki Jai. Welcome to today's Zoom Satsang at the Hediakandi Universal Ashram. And we're fortunate today to have Dr. Arvind Lal here with us, who has quite a history, has written a beautiful book called The Corporate Yogi. If you haven't read it, it's a treasure. But for those who have not read it, and just for everyone, this is an opportunity to ask more questions and to hear more about his journey. So, can you begin, Arvind, with how did this all happen?
Thank you very much, Ram Loti, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, in whichever part of the world you are in. And it's a pleasure being with the Hirakhandi family. And thank you very much, Ram Loti, for organizing this. So it's not me who started this journey on the spiritual path. It was my parents, and my mother and father actually had already had darshan of Babaji in the time when he was not, available on this earth. When he, according to our Indian, script, we call it adrishya, which you cannot see. And this was a time between 1922 and 1970, and sometimes in the mid 60s, when my mother, who had been brought up as a very pious, spiritual, religious, Brahmin. We have four sects in India, and I'm not going to go into that. So the Brahmins are supposed to be the more learned ones, or the most learned ones. So she was brought up in that family, and she belonged to an Indian town in Punjab by the name of Amritsar, which is very close now to the Pakistan border. The town of Lahore and Amritsar are just 40 miles or 40 kilometers apart. So she grew up as she was born in 1920, which means that she would have been 102 years old today. So she grew up in that atmosphere, and when she married my father in 1948, my father never stopped her, but he knew that this lady will keep on, visiting gurus, because that was a part and parcel of her life from where she was coming from. And I jokingly referred to my mother as being a person who did guru shopping. All you ladies, especially, you do window shopping. So my mother used to indulge in a sport known as guru shopping, and she had that urge, and she wanted to find her perfect guru. And we've had a lot of saints, including Chinmayanand, who has stayed in my house, and Muktanand, whose ashram I've been to, Anandamayi Ma, who my mother took me to, or she gave me a very nice Rudraksh Mala, and so on and so forth. So this was a house which always had spiritual people coming, or my mother, meeting them or having the darshan. And autobiography of a yogi, which, like so many others around the world, had a great impact on my mother. And she was especially very enamored of reading the chapter Materializing a Palace in the Himalayas, which is probably chapter 34. So in that chapter, in a nutshell, the writer of the book is a gentleman by the name of Paramhans Yoganand, and his guru's guru, grand guru, I should say, was one Lahiri Mahashe, and Lahiris are, Bengalis, or they live in East India, and he was living in an East Indian town of Hazaribagh, which is, in Bihar or in that area now. And he was in the employment of the British military account service. And he found himself, getting an order, and he was posted to Ranikhet. And I believe it took him 33 days to reach Ranikhet, because he had to take a tonga, which is a horse-ridden carriage, and a train and a bus, and God knows what else, and obviously on foot also. So when he reached Ranikhet, he reported to his, British boss, who welcomed him. He said, "Larry, thank you very much for coming. And since you must be tired, so why don't you go and relax?" And Larry was shown his room. And obviously, Larry was a man of, he was not moving a house. So probably he just had a black colored trunk and what we call a hold all in which you roll up your bedding, and then probably an umbrella on his arm. And that is, I think, all what he had. So no time really, he was all set, and then he ventured outside his door, and he liked the smell of the coldish or chilly wind, and interspersed with the smell of pines and the wet mud. So that was something very heady for him, and he ventured out and he started walking on a small footpath, what we call a pagdandi in the hills. When there are no road, but there are man-made paths, and so he started walking on that. And he must have walked for a few minutes when he heard a voice, Lahiri. And he disregarded this voice first because he thought his mind must be playing tricks on him, and which happens many times. You feel that you've heard somebody or seen somebody, and actually you've not. So he kept on walking, and suddenly, after a couple of minutes, again there was the voice again repeated, Lahiri. And Lahiri Mahasaya, he turned around and he saw not an old man, probably a middle-aged person with copper hair. And that person asked Lahiri that, have you recognized me? And Lahiri said, no, I have not. So the man takes Lahiri into into a small temple which is inside a cave, and there are all the ingredients of making a puja, a lamp and chandan and kumkum, etc. There, everything is lying there, and there's a small oil also, oil lamp which is burning. So Lahiri is made to sit on the mat by this gentleman and told to open his mouth, and this person dips his hand inside the oil lamp into the oil and sprinkles the oil into Lahiri's mouth. And suddenly Lahiri realizes that this is my guru from my previous life. And then they have a whale of a time, and he's taught many things, and a palace of gold is materialized by the guru's powers, and he's fed, he's bathed, whatever, he's looked after. And the guru also promises him, gives him a boon that whenever you want to see me or you think of me, you just have to remember me and I will appear. And in the book, it is written that he, misuses these powers, 3 times on the way back, when he's going back. And then the guru, gets angry with him. And he said that, well, you are now, I'm not people's exhibit number 1, that you can show me off to your friends. So anyway, but they going back to the scene. So the scene continues, and ultimately they both say goodbye to each other. And they promise to meet. And now Lahiri, when he goes back to his, workplace, he realizes that 3 calendar days have already passed. And now he is literally shivering in his pants, and he's very afraid that, he's not reported for work even for 1 day. And what would his English boss, say? They're disciplinarians, as you all know. And he reports, to the English boss, and the English boss, is so happy to see him, and his face is ashen-faced, as if there's no color. And he said, thank God, Lahiri, you are safe. And then the English boss tells Lahiri that there has been a terrible mistake. Read this letter. And in that letter, there is, this is the, what the letter is saying is that you were posted here by mistake. And now, these are your orders to go back to Hazaribagh again. So as if the guru had engineered Lahiri's posting to Ranikhet just to meet him, to give his blessings to him. And that, my mother was very, very intrigued, after reading this chapter, and she would read it again and again. And in this chapter, Babaji, or the guru, is mentioned as Maha-Avatar Babaji. And Maha-Avatar Babaji means avatar is, when God comes in human form on this earth. And Maha-Avatar means, one of the biggies, one of the, like Lord Ram or Lord Krishna. So my mother was very intrigued, and one day soon afterwards, my father, asked my mother if she would like to accompany him to Nainital, which is about 90 kilometers before Ranikhet in the same Kumaon Hills. So Uttarakhand, in which is on top of Uttar Pradesh, it's a hilly area which has got so many Himalayan peaks like Nanda Devi and um, Trishul, etc. So my mother is asking my father that why do you want to take me to Nainital? So my dad tells my mom that there is a Rotary conference, and my dad was apparently the secretary or president of the Rotary Club of Delhi, and they were having a conference. So my mother, looks at him and she tells him in no uncertain terms that I will come with you to Nainital only if you take me to Ranikhet. So like all gentlemen and good husbands, he said, that's no problem at all. Please come. And they have a nice time in Nainital, and he takes some time off in these, they are in Ranikhet now. And the scene changes, to the Ranikhet Golf Club, which is not very far from where we live in Ranikhet now. We have a house there. And my father then stops by and he goes to my mom and says, what are you reading? So my mom just tells him that I've read this chapter many times. Why don't you read it? And my father reads it. And then my father looks at my mom and says, is this the reason why you brought me to Ranikhet? And she says, yes. He said, then what are we waiting for? Let's get up and start looking for this Mahavatar Babaji. So they go to 2-3 places. They spend about an hour and a half or nearly 2 hours. And suddenly they go to a place and say, have you heard of Mahavatar Babaji? People say, yes, we've heard about him. And he is supposed to be, timeless, and he can appear and disappear at any time he feels like. But, cutting a long story short, they say, but we don't know where he lives. We all know he is around in this area, and many people have, had his darshan. Anyway, so my parents are moving in their old ambassador car, which is still running on the streets of India. So suddenly the car is stopped by 2 sadhus, saints, right in the center of the road. And my mom, who is sitting with my dad, she looks at, one of them, and she knows that this is Mahavatar Babaji. So my father has stopped the car. My mother quickly gets out of the car and she goes and touches his feet. And my father, of course, that's the reason why he's also, encouraging. And the elder of the 2 saints sits in front with my dad, and my mother sits with the other yogi. And they're taken to a place which is probably similar to the one which I have just described to you about Lahiri Mahashaya. There's a cave and there is a mat there, etc., and inside a temple. And on the way, there are, steps, or there is a small wall, I should say, which is about 2 feet in height. And my mom, being an Indian lady, she doesn't want to pull up her, sari, and then, it's not done. So she's thinking, and this man with her, the saint, puts a palm on her back and says, no, you'll be able to cross. Why don't you do that? And my mother used to tell me that she just flew over the 2 feet wall. And then they reach the temple, in which, again, in the classical form, there is a mat, there is a lamp, there is, the samagri, as we call, to do the puja, the ingredients, and the puja is done. And now my mom wants to ring the temple bell, which is, pretty high. And my mom was hardly 5'2", 5'3", and now she's thinking in her mind, that how should I do it? And this man tells her, he says, you try. And she finds herself levitating in the air and ringing the temple bell. And all this is not lost on my father also, who's actually photographed it. And unfortunately, we don't have the videos. My father was, very fond of photography. So then the parting comes, and my mother, asks Mahavatar Babaji, says, when will we have your darshan again? When will we see you again? And Mahavatar Babaji replies to her, says, whenever you come with so much of faith, you will always find me. And then they bid goodbye to each other. My mother and my father, they both touch his feet. And the scene, now is back to Delhi. And the time is now 1974. And apparently Babaji has appeared in 1970 in Hirakan, as you all know. And suddenly two college-going students, and as I told you that my mother was very fond of doing guru shopping. So these two young boys were studying in college. They were also the same genre, and they would go and, as we say, matha teko, matha means put your forehead at their feet. So matha, they used to go. And they come to my mother and say, Mataji, we are hearing that Lord Shiva has appeared as one Hirakan Baba. So would you like to come with us and have his darshan? And my mother said, of course. And by the way, those two gentlemen are still there. And they're my age. They were much younger, like my mother's, kids. And my mother and my father, they tag along. And on the year is 1974. And even I was already a doctor, and I also tag along with my mom and dad. And of course, I don't know this ancient history, which I've just narrated to you. And of course, I just went and touched his feet, stood aside, and my mom and dad, they were having a nice chat with him. And ultimately, my dad is, nudging my mom, ask him if he's the same. He was not looking the same. And then my mother asks him and says, Babaji, have you ever given us darshan before? So first he looks at my dad and he says, Dr. Sahab, when we met last time, I was with you for 3 hours. And he tells my mother the same words which he told her at the time of parting, that whenever you come with so much of faith, you will always find me here. And both of them are stunned and they both fall at his feet. And then they come home. And the very next day, my mother is visited by an old friend of the family from Amritsar. I just narrated to you that my mother grew up in the Punjab border town of Amritsar. And this gentleman is a Parsi gentleman. Parsis are Zoroastrians, and their descent is from Persia, Iran. And they're all speaking, Hindi speaking, and he's not even from the same, religion. They have a Zoroastrian religion. But he's a Lord Shiva Bhakt. And what is more important is he is asking my parents out of the blue, he says, have you ever heard of Hirakan Baba? And my parents look at each other. He says, how the hell does he know? We've just had his darshan, a day back or a few hours earlier, whatever. How does he know? And then my parents asked this, Mr. Boga is his name. I've written his name in my book also. And he says, Rusi is his first name. He says, Rusi, why are you asking us about this Hirakan Baba? He says, because I am the trustee of the Bhrigu Samhita. Bhrigu Samhita is something like a kind of a organization, pretty much like Nostradamus. And where all for years immemorial, hundreds and thousands of years, your papers, astrological papers are kept there. And if you are lucky, your paper can be taken out and they will say that, okay, Dr. Lal, your name is Arvind and you are a medical doctor, you're this, you have parents, your father was a doctor, etc., etc. And they can rattle off things about your past life, your future lives. And this is a pretty widely accepted kind of a astrological kind of a center in India. So Mr. Rusi Boga tells my parents that he is on the management committee or he's the chairman of that, organization. And in that, a paper has been discovered which says that Lord Shiva will appear in this Kali Yuga as Hirakan Baba. So now he's repeating the question to my parents that have you heard or seen him? And my mother and father said that yes. And then they take Mr. Rusi Boga also to Babaji, and then Babaji, has a whale of a time, and they have a whale of a time. And he even, takes them, all the three of them go with him to Vrindavan, which is near, Agra. So that is how, the cementing was done. And in my case, personally, now my story, which is quite insignificant in front of all of this, what you have heard, is that I've written my book that I was I was a lecturer in pathology in the Armed Forces Medical College in Pune. And the year was 1977. I was also looking after, and when you have a hostel with so many students, you also have to have a warden. So I was a warden at a very young age of 650 medical students. And which was, they gave me quite a time in my life. I'll never forget those days. So anyway, I was trudging along quite well. I was also doing my post-graduation. I was teaching the students. I was also looking after the students as a warden. So my life was pretty okay. And suddenly I heard, and my father had passed away. And when I came back to Delhi, I discovered that my younger brother, whom we all loved, and he was a very fine gentleman, he had shot dead my father. Now, this was something which is, unheard of. You only read about it in books and, it doesn't happen maybe once in a million cases or families it may happen. But it happened to me, and in one instant, my father was gone. My brother, whom I loved very much, whom everybody thought was a gentleman of the highest order, well, he was gone. And the girl I was engaged to, well, they said that we are breaking off this engagement, Dr. Lal, because we don't want to give a girl into a family where people are shooting at each other, rightly so. So that was as if a carpet had been removed from under my feet in my life. And it was a very tough time. And my exam, postgraduate exam for pathology was also due in 10 days' time. So I had to go back, appear in the exam. Thank God I passed, etc. And I came back. And in December 77, so I had Babaji's darshan twice in Delhi. One was in 74 and 75. And in 75, he had even come to our house. And in 1977, I, went with my mother and my cousin Bhupi, which Ram Loti may remember and Raghuveer might remember, Bhupi, Munna's elder brother. And so three of us went there, and that was my first time I had gone to Hirakan Ashram. The time was December 1977. And there was turmoil in my life, and my brother was in jail. My father is no more. The girl whom I loved has been snatched away from me. And all those kind of things. And who's going to look after the practice if I'm going to leave my lucrative, nice job, which I, loved. So all those kind of things are there. And my age is 28 years at that time. And in the evening, we are sitting there in the Kirtan Hall in Hirakan. And I hear for the first time, very nice bhajan Kirtan going on. And I discover it is Sheila Ben, who was a very dear friend of Ram Loti. She also spent a lot of time. In fact, she died in Baka only. And so Sheila Ben was playing the harmonium and also singing the bhajans. And the bhajan which she sang best was Hanuman Chalisa. If you haven't heard Sheila Ben's Hanuman Chalisa, you haven't heard Hanuman Chalisa ever being sung, by anybody. It was so melodious. And suddenly the music stops and Babaji makes me get up and I stand up. And Sheila is standing on Babaji's one side and Babaji is speaking to her in Hindi. And Sheila she's got a booming voice and almost, and she's repeating the same message in Hindi and in English. And the message goes like this. Babaji is telling Sheila Ben that we are today privileged to have the company of Dr. Arvind Lal. He is one of the greatest doctors you will ever find. And if anybody has any problem of any sort, physical problem, please go to Dr. Lal and show him. And show him now, because later on he'll become so big and his name would be present in each and every lane. Har gali mein naam hoga. In each and every lane in India, his name is going to be there. Babaji is telling everybody in 1977. And I've just described to you that, I was what turmoil my mind was in. And I feel very small because nobody has, said such kind of things. And when I retired to my room with my mom, and I asked my mom, I said, does Babaji always talk about, people like this? She says, I have never heard him say such things. But since Babaji is saying it, there must be some truth in it. And anyway, so I put it in my, at the back of my mind. And well, today I would like to say with Babaji's grace, there are 300,000 pathology labs in India, and ours is rated the number one. And last year we, tested more than 20 million patients. On an average day, we can see about 100,000 patients, and we are running now 275 labs all over India, and about 4,000 collection centers. And during the RT-PCR, which is still continuing, I'm sure it'll disappear one day. We have tested more than 3 million RT-PCR tests. So that is what I'm saying is the power of Babaji's prediction. And it's how many years back now? 44 years back, he predicted it, and every word of that has come true. And not so nice things also come along with this. And the Forbes magazine has branded me as a billionaire. Now that tag I could well do without, because number one, you will never see those billions, if I may say so. They're lying locked up in some kind of shares or whatever. And number two is that I would much rather, by nature, I am not a kind of a guy who will flash kind of these things. But this is what Babaji had predicted, and that's every word of that is true. And in between, he also, told me once when I was on a visit to Chilianola that one day, Arvind, you will become the head of my organization. And that has also come true now. And after, you all know that Munirajji passed away in 2012. Then Alok Bhai, ran the ashram. He was a chairman for 7 years. And then because of ill health, he retired. And yours truly, was appointed the chairman in 2019, December. So it's going to be now 2 years. And I'm trying to, live up to Babaji's teachings and whatever is possible. Unfortunately, the COVID has gotten, between Babaji and, all the devotees. Otherwise, we were quite happy. So going back to my original story, so the night passes off after I have been praised to high heavens by Babaji. And the next morning, I go to Babaji. I said, I would like to have, a quiet 5 minutes with you. So I fear nobody because I'm coming from a background. So yes, I know he's a great soul. So he is capable of answering my question. And Babaji calls me and says, yes, what can I do for you? So my first, question and, request to him is, I said, Babaji, please make me into a very nice man. Mujhe ek acha aadmi bana dijiye. So I don't know why I said it, but I said it. And he says, Avashya. He says, absolutely. And then I go back to the shooting in my family. And I said, Babaji, because by that time I've heard from my mother, from my mother's friends and some other people that these are all karmic things. Somebody shoots somebody in one life and that person is born as your son and he shoots him. So there's nothing wrong. I mean, so, all these kind of things are going on in my mind, and I'm sure if any one of you was in my position, same thing would have happened. But you do get to hear these things. So I asked Babaji straight off with a straight face. I said, look, Babaji, I don't know your cosmic penal code, what happens up there. But I am governed by the Indian Penal Code, what we call IPC. And for this, and under this law, my brother has shot dead my father, for which he has to be punished. And Babaji looks straight at me. He says, of course, I'm going to punish him. Don't worry. So you can imagine that, pent up steam inside the pressure cooker is suddenly released. And this is all I wanted to hear, that there shall be justice done because, I'm let's not go into all the other, kind of things which can happen. So I am pretty relieved, and Babaji then has a glint in his eye, says, doctor, we're going to be meeting very soon. So I don't know. I said, I've just come back. I've got to run my lab and, get entrenched into work. And at that point of time, we had a small lab, which my father started in 1949. And when he came from, what is now known as Pakistan, and he left for America. He trained in the Cook County Hospital in Chicago for 3 years. So for 3 years, he was studying in America. And he came back and he expanded the business. But what I'm trying to say is that when I took over the lab, there was just about 20 patients coming or 25 patients coming. And today I've just told you that last year we saw 20 million patients. And on an average day, so we had just had one lab at that time. Today we have 275 odd labs, 6,000 collection centers. So I really grew the business. And the little bit of my work now, I always knew that I was very good in my job. There was no denying that fact. And we also knew that India suffered from lack of healthcare. And if you don't diagnose, what can you treat? So, in other words, pathology testing is at the backbone of 70% of your clinical decisions. And that's how important pathology is, because every medicine is now evidence-based. Gone are the days, you could go to a, Ayurvedic or maybe a kind of a different kind of a natural physician. He just felt your pulse and gave you medicine. Those days are over now. So that is about my profession, and lots of things happened. And then Babaji, took a liking to me. I really don't know why. And because before me was the secretary of the Samaj was one Dr. V.V.S. Rao. He was a civil engineer. He was a structural engineer who was educated in what was at that time in East Germany, in the Humboldt University. So he was a secretary. He was a very knowledgeable man. And Babaji used to call him, and he would, correct Babaji and take him to different parts of Kumaon. And suddenly I was told one day that Dr. Rao can't go, but Arvind, you take Dr. Rao's car and you go and you fetch Babaji and take Babaji wherever he wants to go. So Babaji was very happy that I had come. I was driving Dr. Rao's car. And I remember the car had, like all Indian cars those days, had a very major radiator defect. The damn car would stop every, 50 kilometers or so. We had to put buckets of water in the radiator and then, make it run. Anyway, cutting a long story short, after that, I never took Dr. Rao's car. I took my own car. And Babaji was very happy. So during those, 10, 15 years of my being with Babaji, I would say it's about less than 10 years. So he would, tell me many things, and which are all written in my book. I don't want to preempt it, but I will, take down or narrate to you a few things which have left a very deep impression on my mind, and I'm passing them all over to you. So one day I asked Babaji, I said, Babaji, which is the fastest way of getting close to God, of attaining or becoming spiritual? That was the question. So Babaji looks at me and he thinks for a few seconds and he says, Karam Yoga and Jap Yoga. And Karam Yoga I understood because we have all, read or heard about Gita in many forms, in which Lord Krishna is telling his, cousin Arjun, that his uncle, his nephew actually, and Arjun is developing cold feet at the time of fighting a war which has been thrust upon him. And on the opposite side are all his cousins in different forms and shapes, and they're much more powerful. And Lord Krishna is even related to them because Lord Krishna is an uncle of the family, so he has nephews on both sides. And Arjun is now developing cold feet, and he's having second thoughts in his mind. And he says, oh, I know so-and-so, his uncle so-and-so, and his son so-and-so, and he's just got married, and he will die in this war, and what will I do? And, he's getting all those kind of, confusing thoughts. So that is the time when Lord Krishna stops the time from happening. He freezes the time, and all the soldiers, they are all standing there. War has not yet started. And he gives this discourse to Arjun, which is known as Srimad, Gita. And this Gita, the basic thing, of course, you learn so many things about, God and what your duty is. But main thing is that you have to do your duty, you do your karma. And so I had no problem in understanding what Babaji was telling me, that, well, you do your karma yoga, But the second part, which is Jap Yoga, this was absolutely going above my head. And I said, well, I just thought of myself as I'm holding a mala and, sitting in a corner and doing Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, or Ram Ram. It didn't gel with me exactly. And I asked him a very smart question. And I said, Babaji, what about meditation? Why not meditation? Why do you say Jap Yoga, constant chanting of the Lord's name? So Babaji looked at me and he said that, well, what you are saying is true. Meditation is very good, but it's not meant for you. I said, meaning which? Why? He says, because you, meaning the modern Indian man or modern Western man or Eastern man, whatever, you don't have the time. I said, yes. And this is even if you had the time, pointing at himself, you will not find the perfect guru to teach you meditation. So meditation is not meant for you. For you, Jap Yoga, which is constant chanting of the Lord's name. And so I then immediately understood. And of course, I'll talk about, why he said that. I said, Babaji, okay, when I return back to Delhi, I get up at 7 o'clock in the morning every day. I'll have a quick bath and I'll, go to the puja room, your room, and I will do my jap. I said, no. So now I'm thinking, what have I said this time to him? Why is he saying that? He says, you must finish your japa, your prayers before sunrise every day. Now, this is another, it's a frontal attack on a modern, scientific guy like me. I've understood you want me to do japa, but what is this added condition before sunrise? So I asked him, why? Why do you want me to finish it before sunrise? And now comes the $1 million answer. He says, because at that time, Arvind, we listen. We listen at that time. I said, then what happens after that? He says, after that, we also get busy and our office works 24/7. And we are too engrossed in, doing our own kind of things, which, holding meetings with other gods and trying to run this universe. It's not a small thing if you really, look at it from Babaji's point of view. In fact, why he came on this earth also is an enigma for me. I mean, he was very happy wherever he was. So to meet people like me, Ramloti and Raghuveer and so many other people, he just came. So I understood. You have got to do your Karam Yoga and you have to do your Jap Yoga. Now let me talk another 2 minutes about Karam Yoga. So one day with me, if I was standing with him and he was very fond of me, and if I was standing, say about 50 feet away from him, he would summon me. He said, no, you have to be standing here, you have to be sitting here. So all those kind of things. And now this time, Hargobind Baba has been introduced to me, and Hargobind was like me. He was a medical doctor, and he was, a psychiatrist by training from Switzerland. So Babaji looks at me and he looks at Hargobind, and he says he has, brought all his wealth, Arvind. He belongs to the Birlas and Tatas, which is like, talking about the Rockefellers and the Hiltons of America or the Fords of America. And he says, he has given me all the money and he thinks I can give him liberation. He thinks that I can give him moksha, which is no more, cycle of life and death. So I said, Babaji, you can. Why don't you? And he said, no, I can't. Why? He says, who will do his karma yoga? He has not done his karma yoga. He's telling me in front of Hargobind, who's sitting next to us. So what he said was, what he meant was that, look, here's a guy who is fairly educated, good education. He's become a doctor. Now he wants to give up all his medicine and he wants to come at my feet. And he says, who will do his karma? So I cannot give him moksha. He will look after him. He'll give him so many goodies, spiritual goodies, etc. But he said, I cannot give him moksha. Liberation, I cannot give him. So, ladies and gentlemen, my humble request to all of you is that, equally important is your Karam Yoga. So many people will have pots of money. Many people will have somebody bequeathing them money. Many people will, have all sorts of luxuries of life. But please do not give up working, because this is against the tenets of Babaji's teaching. So Karam Yoga you have to do. And the Jap Yoga, part, then he explained to me, he says, in thousands of years ago, says you had people at, lives were also longer. Five people could live till 500 years, 1,000 years. That's what, I was told by Babaji. And he says a man could, descend from the branch of a tree, and he was hanging by the foot, and he was doing his japa, doing his meditation right into a havan cone, or standing on one leg in a river. So a very intense kind of, spiritual practice people used to do. And what did they used to do internally? They used to be chanting the God's name. Ram, 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 Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And even now the Christian mantra has been added by Babaji into each of our Havan, things which we do, the Babaji's Havan. And Lord Shiva and Lord Jesus Christ, they are supposed to have lived together for a few years in Kashmir. So you will not believe it that in a Hindu Havan ceremony, we remember Jesus Christ because of Babaji. No other Indian saint has ever said that you have to have Jesus Christ mantras. So we have the mantras, and I am happy to share it with all the Christians present here. Om Im Isa Masi Devai Namah. I'll write it down, and I'm sure Ramloti already has it. So Babaji also said that you're not to leave your religion. Don't leave your spiritual practice. Don't come to me and saying that I'm renouncing this. Keep doing whatever God you believe in, keep chanting his name. And that is what the lesson is. So he said thousands of years ago, people would chant, make the mantra so powerful in their bodies, in their spiritual bodies, that they could even kill a man at a distance of 100 kos. A kos, like a mile is bigger than a kilometer, a kos is even bigger than a mile. So 100 kos means about 130 odd miles or so, something like that. And he would just chant a mantra, and he could kill his adversary at hundreds of kilometers. And he said that man had perfected the mantra so much. And he says after that came Tantra. And Tantra Vidya is not something like black magic, in which you control the souls of living beings or people who have just died, etc. No. Tantra Vidya is something like, what Lord Shiv or Lord Shiva taught Ravan, who was a demon king, at the foot of the Lord Mount Kailash. So a tantric vidya can easily be summed up as, for example, you've had a very grueling, say, COVID pandemic here, and many people were admitted to hospital, and many people found themselves to be on ventilator, and many people were not getting off the ventilator. So somebody like this is happening. Just imagine a person, the doctors have said that, okay, usually to the middle-aged ladies in the house, my age, Ramloti's age, well, the doctors come and tell them that, look, we have done everything what we could, but if you have any other thing, any other natural kind of a treatment or any spiritual treatment, please go ahead and do it. So people like them, they would probably do two things. And the first thing is what we call a Mahamritanjay mantra, which is a mantra in honor of Lord Shiva, in which he has the power to raise a man who's been pronounced dead. He can get him back to life. And it's a very long mantra. We do it every day. We do it at the time of every Havan. And the mantra goes like this. Om Hrom Jumsa, Om Bhurbhava Swaha, Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam, Urvarukme Vandanan, Mrityur Moksham Mamtat, Swaha Bhuva Bhu Sa Jum Hrom Om. And then there's a short form, which is plain and simple. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam, Urvarukme Vandanan, Mrityur Moksham Mamtat. So that's a shorter form. So that is, a Mahamritanjay mantra, which is usually told to a person, whose kin is dying. And well, that person goes, in India, it's very common that you catch hold of a pandit, like the pandits would make you do the puja and say that 125,000 times, please get the Mahamritanjay mantra done. I got it done at the time of COVID for a classmate of mine who was working with me, a doctor, but we, couldn't save him, but we got the mantra done in any case. And mind you, when it works, it really works. And the second thing could also be that that person says that, okay, now I will go and show the astrological chart of this gentleman to a person who is knowledgeable in what is known as the red book, Lal Kitab. And Lal Kitab are the kind of, solutions given to Lord Ravan, the demon king Ravan, at the foothills at the base of Mount Kailash. So, and a typical cure would go like this. For example, I just narrated to you that, well, it's a hypothetical kind of a scenario that a man is dying, or he's on his deathbed and he's dying of COVID. He's on the ventilator. The doctors can't get him off. And the somebody in the family takes his astrological chart to a Lal Kitab, a red book astrologer who reads. And if it works there, there's a big if. Everybody is not going to be, given this kind of a green signal. A typical totka, solution is that, okay, what is the weight of this man? So the person who's from the family says 73 kilos. Please take coal, weighing 73 kilos, put it in 2 gunny bags and just put it in the nearest river, and that's it. And the man starts improving. So this is the totka of a Lal Kitab, which Babaji said is Tantra. So there was first mantra, that you have got to charge the battery of the mantra, and then the mantra can even kill, your adversary from at 100 course or 100 miles. Second is Tantra. And then Babaji tells me, now is the punchline, he says, but these days, the time has come of Yantra. Yantra is exactly that you are sitting, 12,000 kilometers away from me and I can see you. And we can talk to each other. And there's a telephone, 1980s when Babaji was around, there was no mobile phone. So we had to dial, those dialing kind of numbers. And people would talk to their loved ones. And, so that was a Yantra. And then after that came, the aircraft, what used to take 3 weeks of travel from from India, say Mumbai to Southampton, it used to take 3 weeks. Now the distance by air is covered in less than 8 hours. So this is all yantra. And Babaji warned me, he says, whatever you are seeing today has always been there earlier also. So don't you think, that what you and I are seeing for the first time, space travel, etc., it's always been there earlier. And he says that the military commander, he can press a button and he can blast his, Mr. Kim Ul Jun or whatever his name is. He can press the red button and he can blast, his enemy thousands of miles away. So that's all yantra, which means instrumentation. But he says the main thing is, iska ye matlab nahi hai ki mantra khatam ho gaya hai. So mantra, tantra, and yantra. But it doesn't mean that in the time of yantra, mantra has disappeared. So mantra is very, very much there. And just to, make you more, confident of doing the mantra. So in my profession, my job, as you all know, is, laboratory testing. And I'm like people in America, I'm like the Quest Diagnostics of India or the LabCorp of India. So our job is to test. And during my testing days, I've taken so many people's blood, etc., including saints, and one was Chinmaya, and one was, this gentleman, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, etc., etc. I'll tell you, come back to Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in a second. And one such saint was, living about 20 kilometers or 15 kilometers from my house. And his doctor came, who was a friend of mine. He said, my guru is not well. He's a Sadarji guru. And I used to go and take his blood. So one fine day, the doctor and I will be there. And the saint was in meditation. And so we did not disturb him. We just came and sat in front of him and he was in meditation. And suddenly his eyes opened. He was coming back. And he tells me, he says, Arvind, I see somebody standing behind you. I said, I just kept quiet. I said, you know, he says it is Lord Shiva standing behind you playing the dabru. And with him is also standing Lord Hanuman. So I touched his feet again and I asked him, and this, mind you, he's not my guru, but he's seeing all this. And he says, what is the order for me from, Lord Shiva? And since my head is at his feet, he pats me on the back and he says, Naam liye ja, na le ja, kam kiye ja. Keep taking the name, keep chanting the name, and keep doing your work. Exactly what Babaji, who would never met him, had told me, years earlier. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to stop with that. And just the last word on meditation, why, what I discovered when Babaji, I felt bad, why not meditation? So when I came back from Babaji's meeting that time, and I was in Delhi, and the next day I read in the front page of our Times of India, which is pretty much like, New York Times or whatever, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi sued in US courts, was sued in US courts by his, because he had promised to teach them, taken money to teach them. Charanjit, your mic is on.
I think I've got it.
Sorry. So Maharishi Mahesh Yogi sued in US courts, headlines in the Indian newspaper with his photograph, because he had charged money and said that I'll teach you transcendental meditation. And the disciple said that, quote unquote, he has just taught us how to jump like bunny rabbits. So I would like to end my talk here. And if there are any questions, please go ahead. Hi, Hiraman, how are you? Long time no see, buddy. Yes.
Good to see you, Arvind.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for getting on, both of you, and Raghu. Rakash has a question. Go ahead, Rakash.
Good evening, Dr. Lal. I am Rakesh Dubey, and I am in Delhi. I work as a director here in Ministry of IT. I started attending this session of Baba Haida Khan since Guru Purnima. And I have not met obviously Babaji in person, but I was very kind of, there is some
Mr. Ravi Suksena, will you please close the microphone?
Ravi, please switch off your mic. Your mic. Thank you. Okay, please carry on, Rakesh.
Yeah. So I was very, kind of, happy, content the way you said that your brother, of that incident between your brother and of your father, you narrated it so peacefully, I'm sure you went through a lot of turmoil, but, faith or, Babaji's power for in front of him, this turmoil was nothing. That's why the way you said it, it was such a big thing for a normal human being, but you said it so, calmly, as if, Babaji has really blessed you in a way, and I have narrated my experience here on this platform on Guru Purnima. I myself have had some personal experiences in America, and my mother had her experiences in Mumbai. I am in Delhi right now. I have gone through a lot of turmoil, but the way you said, after all those turmoil, Babaji kind of did some blessing and he gave you peace. I do not know really why it is not happening with me. I do get some messages, some, dreams, a lot of things which happen with all of us. But certain things have happened with me in US, in Denver, and with my mother in...
Are you in Delhi? You are in Delhi right now?
Yes, I am in Delhi.
Okay, so there is, we'll take this conversation forward. Why don't you come and do a Havan with me on any Monday at 8 o'clock in my house? It's an open house. Sandeep Tandon is sitting there. He comes every Monday. So please come any Monday to my house, and we'll take this thing forward. No, not to worry.
Sure.
People, who have studied trigonometry, there's a sine curve. You know, your thing will go up and it will go down also. There is, believe you me, Rakesh, there is nobody on this earth, you know, who has not gone through turmoil in his life. Even when God appeared on this earth in human form, Lord Ram, he knew he was an avatar of Lord, Vishnu. So could he stop, him being sent into the jungles for 14 years? And for 13 years, it was, I mean, he lived like, but he was not sleeping on Dunlop pillow. And 14th year, his wife got kidnapped by, the demon king Ravan. And had it not been for Hanuman, he would have lost everything. And 3,000 years later, the most handsome God ever who came on earth, Lord Krishna, appeared. And he knew he's God. But could he stop his two cousins from fighting with each other, which I just narrated? So when the Kal, with the time has not left gods, the time will not leave you and me. So the answer is that what do we have to do? We have to follow these two teachings, which are the most practical teachings. They say all roads lead to Rome. So some other guru may teach you something or his disciples, but what Babaji has taught us, that do your Karam Yoga to the fullest of your capability, do your Jap Yoga to the fullest of your capability, and leave the rest to me. And secondly, he also said, you take one step towards me, I will take 10 steps towards you, period.
Thank you, Arvind. I know Nima has been on here the whole time and she has a question because your time is going short, and I'm so happy you're connecting for the Havan on Mondays, Rakesh. That'll be a beautiful.
How do I get it?
Babaji dug the Havan Kund in my house, by the way.
So how do I get in touch with you, Dr. Lal? Do you have an email or something?
Yeah, I have everything. I'll connect with you. Not to worry.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Nima.
Okay. So I have a very simple and a very direct question. Maybe, and it has to do with the current situation. So my question is, why do I need to make a jab, to be forced to make a jab if I want to come to Herakan? Babaji always said Herakan is open for everybody.
Sure.
Now I need to put something in my body which I don't want to, if I want to be at the feet of my beloved Guruji. Why? Why is this needed? Why, Arvind Lal, as chairman, you took this decision? I'm asking from my heart, with all my soul, and for all the people who are living in Herakan and had to take this jab, and maybe they even didn't want it. Why? Why you do this? Sorry if I ask it, but I want an answer from you. Om Namah Shivaya.
But what is the question? I didn't get the question. What is it you want the answer for? What is the question, Ram Loti?
About the vaccine. Why,
I would like to know why
vaccinated to come to.
Nima, I must tell you here now, please do not waste other people's time. As a medical doctor and as the governments all over, if you don't take the vaccine, nobody's forcing you, but don't try to spread that to others. So let's not get into that arena at all. So I'm not going to answer that question. We have said enough on this subject, I think. So let's move to the next question.
I haven't.
No, it's okay. You don't want to get the vaccine, you don't get the vaccine. Let's leave it at that, please.
No, but we are a spiritual community where we interact with the other in different ways. And this has been a significant change to exclude certain people from participating in following their spiritual path. Yeah. So far, Herakan has never required private medical information from anybody, never required them to make certain medical decisions.
Vandana, I must tell you this thing. This is not my decision. This is the government of India's decision. You cannot.
And our government's always right. We are devotees of Babaji,
the government. I am not willing to get into that kind of a conversation here.
Can we have that conversation another time then? These are
important questions. Don't get it done. It's fine. It's okay. Fine. No, it's
Our
okay.
request is to have a conversation, and if this isn't the time, when is
Okay,
the time to have this
not just
conversation?
now, not just now.
So
Today
when
is a
can we have
spiritual
that
session.
conversation?
Well, we request Ram Loti to have a full vaccination seminar, and we shall talk about it.
That would be
No,
fantastic to actually have a conversation, because there are many
Sure.
people who would love to actually speak about this and what it means for our
No
community.
problem at all. No problem at all.
Will
I
you do
feel-
that, Ramloti? Will you organize it?
We can organize something. Yes, sounds
Thank
like
you.
would be a
Can I
very,
say something?
I-
And
Ramloti?
thank you, Dr. Lal.
thank you, Nima.
I would just like to say I feel discriminated because I have made my personal choice for my body, for my soul, and I can't come to do my seva.
Doctor, should I answer?
So I
No,
feel
there is no. Let's not waste
I just
other
want
people's
to
time.
share
We'll
this
have a
with you,
we will
and I
have a
would like that
vaccination.
you just hear it, and that's it. Thank
So,
you.
Nima, there are. This is, this is not the country of India, which is fully democratic, or country like United States, where you have the, pro-vaccination and anti-vaccination. As far as the medical doctor is concerned, there is no further conversation except when you want to. We all will discuss vaccination. We'll come very gladly, and I'll also bring in some experts, who are not from Hirakan, but we can talk about it. But all I'm trying to say is that this is not a matter of, democracy or a personal choice. It's fine. You don't want to get it done, but why do you want other people not to get it done? Period.
I don't say that. I didn't say
keep
that.
it to
I don't
yourself.
want other people
Fine.
to get it done.
Bye-bye.
I just
Okay, let's have this conversation at another time, okay?
Let's
okay.
move on.
Hirman, you wanted to say something, perhaps?
Yeah, I think we have to all remember that we're always at Babaji's feet, and if we can't go to Hirakan right now, or even in the future a bit, it doesn't keep us from doing our seva. We're always doing our seva wherever we are, and we're always at Babaji's feet wherever we are. And sometimes we just need to remember that, and also remember tolerance for each other. We're always going to have slightly different ideas or bigly different ideas, but we're a family, and families can disagree on some things, but still be families.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Very well said. Very well said, Hema.
Can you entertain one more question from Vandana? I know your timing.
Sure, Vandana, please go ahead.
So it's in response, I understand this is a satsang, right? And I really appreciate we'll have that conversation another time. So I'm not going to mention specifically anything about vaccines or choices. That's what we're agreeing here now to have that conversation in a different frame. Just in response to that sense of family is my question is, in a family, it's important to talk about things and hear different views and perspectives and a change, and with an intention to listen, to have that diversity of perspectives and experiences, and then bring that together, like Babaji talked about, right? The line and the and the dough kind of drinking together, right? So we are different, we have differences, and to bring that together and an exchange. So I'm wondering, as a question to you, as chairman, what are your ideas or initiatives to actually build dialogue in the community and bring different perspectives together?
I think the most important thing, Vandana, is that we must not, go astray from what Babaji has said. And he's what I have told you, I've just shared in a few, minutes. But there's a whole book of Babaji's teachings, which are available with you. So the question is that you've got to moderate your life. You may go to any guru, he'll make you do something, which is a part of your spiritual penance. So in this case, Babaji has said that you have to keep on doing your work. So may I ask you, what kind of work are you in, Vandana? What kind of work are you in?
I'm a leadership coach and management consultant, and I also work as a breathwork therapist and yoga teacher.
Yeah. So please keep doing your work, and with Babaji's chanting of the Om Namah Shivaya, I'm sure he'll take you to a higher degree. And when we are in school and colleges, when children have these kind of conversations with each other, and why do you believe in God and why don't you believe in God, etc., etc. You're also told that, well, to succeed in life, it is 99% perspiration, right? You got to sweat it out. And there is 1% inspiration. So I'm looking after that 1% inspiration part, which will help you in achieving your 99%. So as far as Babaji's community is concerned, this is, the message for you, that you have to do your Karam Yoga and do your Jap Yoga with full, fervor. Try and do all these things as I narrated to you in my case also, that try and finish it before, sunrise, and leave the rest to him. And there's very little more you can do. Does it answer your question, Vandana?
Indirectly, my question was quite directly about, and I guess indirectly you answered it, that in your position as chair, the leadership we can expect from you is to remind us to do our seva and to follow the disciplines. And when it comes to actually dealing with conflicts or different opinions in these communities, you will say, leave it to Babaji. So what if Babaji, or we have a sense that the seva is actually leading us to take a position in certain ways and not just sit quietly in front of the altar and do japa?
Yeah, agreed. So you're going to do your Karam Yoga and your Jap Yoga both hand in hand.
I think also this idea that perhaps we do have a satsang about this situation. And I'm not sure when that's going to happen. We were talking about maybe one more and then taking a break for the holidays. But Arvind, if you and Sanjeev and Sandeep, I see, is also on, and many others here, and Raghu, if many people, and of course you, Vandana, Nima, if we could have this discussion perhaps in the beginning of the year when we reconvene, if you'd be willing to sit with us. And this would be another way of, I think, addressing bandhanas. The practice is very important. And I've always had also this, it's like, where does conversation and understanding one another's point of view, like Baba also said, tea parties are good because you can come together and get to know one another. And so I think these satsangs have been very helpful for us to know one another and our loves and our feelings. And so perhaps a satsang on this topic, as volatile as it is, if we could come with love and a willingness to listen very well, it may be very valuable. So that if you're willing to do that, Arvind, maybe in the beginning of the year.
So what we'll do is, Ram Loti, you, me, and some senior leadership here, we'll first have a conversation, and we'll talk about it, and then we'll go about it. Okay.
I think that would be great.
Okay.
So look for that. Thank you for taking extra time with us.
Thank you very much. And Raghubir, we've been missing you, so you're looking just the same. I think Kosamu is doing you a lot of good.
He's ageless.
Ageless. And so thank you, Arvind. And for everybody else, we're going to go on with questions and answers as Arvind goes to his best friend's birthday party. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye.
I will wait to hear from you, Arvind. I need your coordinates.
Yeah. So Ram Lodi will give you. I'll just write them down on the chat box. My telephone.
I'll coordinate with him, Dr. Shab.
Okay, fine.
Thank
Okay,
you.
folks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bole Baba ki jai.
Jai.
Bye. Bye, Vandana. Bye, Nima. Good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you. So we have dedicated the rest of this hour for questions and answers. I would ask that, and it's about our own, it doesn't have to be about any of the topics he was covering, which I found to be inspiring, but it could be our own spiritual practice. And I have some questions, but go ahead, Biggie from France, a German who lives in France.
Hello. Do you hear me from Loti?
Of course.
Okay, good, great. I'm happy. So actually, this is a question I would have loved to ask Dr. Lal, but maybe anybody else can maybe answer this question. How important is it to pronounce the mantras well? As far as I'm concerned, or yeah, I think it is pretty challenging to pronounce the mantra as well when you're chanting. And I read somewhere or heard that it's very important to the pronunciation of the mantras. So I would like to have your view on this, please.
Should I answer, Ramloti?
Is that you, Sanjeev? Go ahead.
Yeah.
We will take your point of view for a moment here. And Sanjeev, if you look up more, we'll actually see your chin. Otherwise, we just see your nose.
Oh, okay. One second.
Okay, lovely nose. Go ahead. And remember, you're speaking to one of the worst pronouncers of these mantras in the world, from Loti, so be gentle.
I'll share a story with you, which I read when I was very young. And they were back in the old days, there were two people who used to visit the Shiva temple every day. One was a Brahmin, a pujari. He did the pujas. He used to reach the temple at 4 o'clock in the morning. And from 4 till 9 o'clock, he used to do all his rituals, decorate the Shivling, do his all proper pronunciation. He was a learned scholar. He did it every day. And he used to be followed by a tribal man from the forest. This man used to do properly scientific way of, doing the rituals the right way. This man was not educated, he was not erudite, he didn't know anything. So what he used to do, his way was, he didn't know the urban way or the educated way. So he used to clean what all the beautifully, the Shingar, the beautification of the Shivling, everything with flowers, with everything. He used to throw everything away and he used to give 10 slaps to the Shivling every day. So both kept worshipping for years and years together. So both had to actually every morning cross a river by swimming to come to this temple was on the mountain top, like you have in Herakan. So they kept doing it for 2 or 3 decades. So one day the river there was a huge flood in the river. So this Brahmin, this Pujari, he said that today Lord doesn't want me to go. The river is dangerous. I'll get drowned in the river. So let it be. So once the river settles down, I'll start going to the temple again. But this tribe man, not an educated, not an erudite, he didn't know anything. He said, even if I die, I have to go and give him 10 slaps today. So he went there and, he did his bit. And the Lord Shiva appeared over there. He says, I love you. Because you didn't care about your own life, but you did what you did always to me. So, yes, the mantra recital is I think this story will answer part of it. Like I am Indian, but I didn't read Sanskrit till a very late stage in my life. And it was a compulsory language for 3 years. I could barely pass. In fact, in class 8, I would have come first in the class, but because of Sanskrit, I became 4th or 5th. I was a good student then. So, a lot of 99% of Indians also don't know the right recitation of Sanskrit. Mm-hmm. And linguistically, phonetically, we are all different. We come from different. In India, there will be more languages than Europe. Mm-hmm. So many millions of dialects, hundreds of languages. So you can. This is my personal experience. If your intent is right, you should get the grammar also right. There's no doubt. The grammar is the right pronunciation, right enunciation. So that's the grammar part. But I don't think the God is there to punish us. A lot of times, a lot of pundits tell me, no, he'll punish you if you don't recite it well. He's not there to, he's a father, he's a friend, whatever you call him. He's not there to somebody, if you love someone, without expecting anything, without any motive, he's not there to punish us. He will understand our inadequacies. He'll understand. He's looking for our heart, Like Rumi said, he said, I'll meet you beyond the realm of right and wrong, I'll meet you there. So it's a very man-created, thing, this is right, this is wrong. But if our soul and heart is pure and we are worshipping him, he understands the language of even the dumb, deaf and dumb, he understands his language also.
Yeah. Babaji, he used to say also, you can know me only through your heart, which would say the same thing that you're saying. Yeah, thank you.
Raghu or Hiraman or anybody else have anything to add to that? Thank you, Sanjeev. Beautiful.
Well, it's very simple. If you now your name is Biggie, if I would call you Rogi, you wouldn't respond. You wouldn't know that I'm talking to you. And it's the same with pronouncing God's name, that if you pronounce it wrong, the connection is not really there. So it's really important that, and even we can only try as Westerners. And even most Indians do not know, because a real Sanskrit, real pronunciation of Sanskrit has a certain effect which comes from another part of the throat, which is very difficult for others if you're not grown up in that environment to pronounce these things correctly, because you create a certain vibration, and this vibration is actually almost already material. It becomes much more, and that's why these mantras have these powers. And
exactly.
If we don't use them correctly, then they don't have that power. That's why it's very important to continuously try to make the best of your pronunciation.
I can sometimes yeah, Raghavir, sometimes I can feel, when I hear a mantra, I can sometimes feel it in a certain part of my body. I don't know, it's I can feel it. So I think that chanting the mantras right is very important. And yeah, for us Westerners, of course, it is a challenge, but yeah, I'm just about to learn everything about mantras and the power of the mantras. And anyway, as I have the possibility to talk to you, Raghavir, today, I really wanted to say that I love your book.
And that's another satsang we're talking about, maybe as we begin again in the coming year, that perhaps Raghu could answer questions about his book, because it is a phenomenal book, which hopefully we'll be able to get here.
Happy to do so.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that I think that's a really beautiful explanation from both of you, this idea that it's our heart that connects us to the divine. And yet there are scientific sounds, that help with that. And I guess my theory is I try to keep it as simple as possible, because I realized my impediment. And so keep it simple and focus mostly on my heart. So any other answers or questions?
I'll add a little bit to that too. I think, I mean, is what everybody said already, but I think we keep coming from our heart, Biggie, and keep learning too. We got to come from that heart place, or even if we're perfect in our pronunciation, we'll be like the tribesmen that, or we won't be like the tribesmen that laid it all on the line, So, but also we want to keep learning in life,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
I would like to.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead. Who's speaking?
Well, two of us are speaking. Yeah. I was just going to say, if you need any assistance or help for the correct pronunciation of any mantra, you can always reach out to me. I can help you with the
thank you.
Pronunciation part of it.
Thank you.
Though
Namaste.
intent is very important as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody else wanted to answer or ask a question?
May I add something on this?
Okay.
for me, I'm an Indian.
Mohan, Mohan, can you
yeah.
put your face on?
Yeah. I'm behind the computer. So, okay, let me put it first. Yeah.
It's just nicer to speak to you.
Yeah.
There we
Okay.
are. Thank you.
So, I'm an Indian, and my pronunciation may be a little bit better than the Westerners. It's nowhere, anywhere closer to Sanskrit. That I want to emphasize. The second thing is, for me, the bigger problem is not in the pronunciation, but in my mind. So when I'm chanting the mantras for half an hour, my mind is gone for 20 minutes somewhere. And being in the mantra, being in its meaning, being in the presence of the Lord for those 30 minutes continuously is much, for me, as I look at it, it's much more important. So, so that's where I leave it. I mean, being in the heart is much more important, but head takes over and mind wanders away. So that's where I am. So I am interested in improving the pronunciation, but I am more interested in having my mind and heart in the prayer.
Lovely. Thanks, Mohan.
When Krishna went to Sudama, he was very hungry. Sudama was very poor. He had only 1 grain of rice. Krishna told Sudama that this ek anna ka ye dana sukh dega mujhko manmana, which means because you are giving me this 1 grain of rice with the right intent, it will fulfill my hunger completely. There is no doubt about it. Just some thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you, Rakesh. Shirman, did you have more you wanted to add?
No, I was just waving at an old friend.
Oh, okay, great. Well, we have another question or more comment on this one.
One question Dr. Lal mentioned about Sheila Bain's Hanuman Chalisa. Where can I get it?
Raghu, do you happen to know where we might be able to get a hold of a Chalisa by Sheila?
Do you have it?
There must be some still online also on some YouTube.
Yeah.
Sheila's sister Neela would have one, I bet.
Yeah. And you, like Raghu said, I bet you could go to Sheila Devi was one, and I think was one of the that Sheila Devi's Harakan Bhajans. So it may very well be online too. So if anybody finds
So the name goes like SHEELA. Am I right?
somebody needs to mute, please.
The name is spelled SHEELA.
No, EILELIY. SHEILA.
Okay.
Sheila Devi.
Thank you. I'll look it up on the internet. Thank you, madam. Thank you, Ramluti.
Thank you, Rakesh. And also, I hope you saw in the chat is an open invitation to people to come to Arvind's, to the daily fire ceremony, weekly fire ceremony he has on Monday at 8 o'clock. He's in, what's that place? Green Park in New Delhi. And I've been many times. It's a very beautiful, so it is in the chat, his contact, Rakesh, and other people too. More questions?
We're getting an early night.
Raghavir, you don't get to go to bed yet. I have a question. I would like, go ahead, Katarina, and then I'll ask my question. Go ahead.
Also, Dr. Lal mentioned the Jesus mantra. Can you please write it down or tell us something with Isa, He mentioned, but I already forgot. I didn't write it down.
Yes, I'll ask Raghavir to say it.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll send it to you.
Okay. Or Sanjeev, you said Om Im Asa. Go ahead.
Om E Isamasi Devaya Namah.
So, but Raghuveer will
Because
get it to you.
Babaji created it. Yeah, Babaji created this. Yeah.
So it's part of our mantras. Yeah.
I think everybody is enlightened now. Nobody has a question. So
No, I have a question. Stop.
Yeah.
My question is, when we offer the prasad, we say the 5 vayus. I need more understanding about all of that. I'm never quite sure. Am I supposed to say it in a proper order or just say any of them? But what are the 5 vayus? And why am I offering the prasad with those mantras?
see, a right order we can find on the internet, but I'll explain you the deeper meaning of it. The 5 vayus come from the Ayurveda. In our body, when we digest a food, goes inside. That's a one kind of air which takes the food inside. When we eliminate the waste from our body, that's another kind of waste, a vayu. Something which takes us inside, something which throws outside. Then there is this vayu is helping. The vayu is basically, if you heard in Ayurveda, Vat. Vayu actually comes from, vayu is actually, Vat is a combination of ether, which is Akash, and the air. So the entire body circulatory system, the voluntary and involuntary, is managed by vayu, by the air. The blinking of the eye, the pumping of the heart, these are all 5 different kinds of vayus which are there in the human body. So when you do Amana Swa, Swana Swa, Samana Swa, so when you that food, when you're offering to the God, you are basically saying the lot of foods, they aggravate the vayu, the bath in your system. It's an energy system. So when you do offer to the God, you say that, or this food, when it is, because when you give to the God the same food we eat or we partake that food. When we go to the bhog, that bhog is mixed into a larger vessel and we partake that food, we eat that food. So when we eat that food, we are praying to the Lord that all the 5 systems of air or the vayu in our system, that food should synergize with our body system. So that is the reason we do this. This is the scientific reason. See, the Indian rituals all had scientific basis, but more large population will not understand the subtler concepts of what the science is. So what there was done, they were married with a certain ritual so that people listen to the concept of God out of fear or out of some expectation. But the real reason is that whatever food we eat, it should help us the 5 kinds of air system which exist in our body. So that's why we do it.
In cranial sacral, also we look at them as the kind of the currents of vital forces in the body.
Yeah, the vital forces and any movement in the body, voluntary, involuntary, is controlled by vayu. So we want, when we pray, that we give to the God as an offering. So we are praying that all these, because according to Ayurveda, 80% of the diseases come from when there is an imbalance in the vayu system.
Thank you.
And maybe it helps to visualize this for people, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Sanjeev, with the vayus being the directions of the wind. So the different vayus have different directions. So apana vayu, for example, is the downwards energy. So everything that has to do with downwards energy, like elimination in our bodies, is apana vayu. And so these, to just visualize how they affect our bodies. And maybe it's similar, sort of more in the shamanic or Western traditions, the way we think about the directions of
You're totally right.
north,
Yeah.
west, south, and east, in that sense of helping the body be healthy and balanced in all the different directions with their different qualities.
You're totally right. In fact, according to the Ayurveda concept of Ayurveda, like a Apana Vayu, you're right, is basically used for the excretion or for elimination of air or food from the system. The same Vayu, when it inverts, when it doesn't go downward, but it takes it becomes reverse, takes a reverse direction. A lot of heart attacks, gastric heart attacks happen because of this, Apana Vayu. So you're right what you're saying, totally, absolutely right. And wind also has a lot of directions in reality. So the way it has multi-dimension directions in our cosmos, similar wave directions it has in our body also. So it is basically we are part of this cosmos. So whatever the 5 elements they do in the cosmos, they do into human body also.
Thank you. Any more, Raghavir? Do you have any insight into the 5 Vayus?
No.
I think Nima had a question. She had her hand raised.
Okay, go ahead, Nima.
Yeah, I have totally another question. It's about the teachings and prophecies of Babaji. On one prophecy, he speaks about Dhara 44. Can you explain this better, please? Someone can explain this better.
Yeah, Dhara 144 is basically...
No, 44, not 144.
Yes,
Only 44, as far as I remember. I checked it before coming, sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Dhara 44, it is actually 144, but it is referred as 44
Okay.
in a way of speaking. It's in the Indian Penal Code, which governs that not more than 4 people can congregate and faff unnecessarily.
What?
Yeah, and Sanjeev, sometimes I'm having a little difficulty hearing you. So come a little closer or something. Go ahead. Yeah. Thank you, Nima.
In the Indian Penal Code, it means that not more than 4 people.
4 people.
Like,
okay.
Yeah, they come and gossip. They talk unnecessarily, talk negative things. So what Babaji meant over there is that don't waste your time by getting and talking unnecessarily. You know, when we meet, people meet, we talk unnecessarily, we gossip, we complain, we bitch about other people, we do all those things. So he said, abstain from all this. This is what his message is.
Okay.
And with less than 4 people, it's okay?
Yeah, you can.
Only in Indian penal code.
I knew it can only come from you.
So what is the rest of that teaching, Nima? Do you have it right there? Can you put it in context?
I mean, in his speech, you understand me? You hear me?
I understand. I totally understand.
In this speech, he says, Dhara 44 code, number 44, is the name of this law, and the person can be punished if he breaks this law. All of you must obey the law. This is a universal law. The world is going to be a universal kingdom. There will be one king, one law in the whole universe. The old laws and regulations are not applicable now. They have lost their validity due to corruption in the law ministries. The old law is no law now. So, I would like to be able to understand a little bit.
Yes.
It doesn't quite fit. I don't know. I don't want to.
So if I may just add
with it, but I can't explain it. I would like if somebody has explanation for it.
If I may,
just 1 second, Rakesh. 1 second.
Yeah.
See what he's saying, that the overall there has been a depletion and diminution of virtue in the human system.
Of what?
Virtues, right way of living, virtuous living, right thinking. The Indian Dharma, in fact, even the Buddhists say that it's a right thinking, right speech, right action, ethical ways of living. The Dharma, the Buddhists call it Dhamma, we call it Dharma, the Sanatana Dharma.
Yeah.
So what he's trying to say that all those old virtues of human existence, of human values, they have diminished over here. So now new laws have to be brought in to basically bring the humanity back on the track. So I'm giving you those, I'm telling you to practice those, do the right Karam Yoga to serve other people, talk less, do more, like Babaji said in teachings of Babaji Sri. This is what he has said: speak truth, be virtuous, be good to others, be simple, be loving. So all those virtues which are part of this, in the Indian system, there are 4 yugas, if you know. The 4,
Oh, yeah.
the Sat Yuga, the Treta, the Dwapar, the Kali Yuga. So the goodness and dharma with every yuga has depleted, it has diminished. If in Sat Yuga, most of the people used to speak truth. In Sat Yuga, people used to give more than 50% of what they earn as a giving. They used to care for other people. So that has started diminishing all those good virtues. So in the Kali Yuga, a new order has to be established. This is what Babaji, this is my understanding. I could be wrong also, but this is my understanding, that I will bring in new laws of living the right way. Like he once was telling us always again and again, that I have come to teach you humanity. This is what my teaching is, that how you become a good, don't be selfish, take care of others, think about other people, the good of other people, remove selfishness, remove idleness, so all that he said is basically I'm introducing the new laws to live life in the right way.
All together. All together. One. Because one, if the German is doing a puja, then all Germans have to be there. If a French does the puja, all French have to be there. That's what he said before. So all together, right? Okay.
Yeah, see,
Thank
he's
you.
saying harmony, coming together, yeah.
All together, no discrimination. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
That's Babaji.
Rakesh ji, आप कुछ कहना चाहते थे? Mr. Rakesh?
Rakesh.
I only wanted to say that 144 basically means, I don't know whether you are familiar with the term curfew, where people are not allowed to assemble. Basically, in the times of, let's say, tension or some calamity, rumor mongering adds fuel to the fire. To prevent that, people are not allowed to gather, and that don't gather together and spread rumors. That is 144. Dhara.
44. On the teachings on the booklet, it's written 44, not 144. It's only written 44. I checked it before.
I think I
don't
maybe
know.
if I could
don't
add
know.
something.
I mean, I don't want to battle about it. It doesn't matter, but the concept was clear all together. Thank you.
Hiranya? I mean, Hiraman, sorry.
It was just Navaratri, so that's okay. I think, if we look at humans' tendencies, we are, the way that our brains have evolved, that we have a propensity to we have a negative bias for information. So what Babaji's not saying that we shouldn't gather together more than 4 people or that these laws should, what he's saying is that we have to watch ourselves and govern ourselves. And that when we gather together, we need to hold the right thought and work together with kindness and love and tolerance. And that is the new universal law, that not to become, because it's easy for us all to get together and see what is wrong with everything. That's how we're made. That's how our brains work. That's how we've survived through evolution, is watching out for danger. So our brains are programmed to look negatively at information in the thalamus. That's where the information comes in, and there's a complete negative bias. So what we need to do is become humans and overcome that propensity to be negative and work together and do all the things that Babaji wants us to do.
That's it.
And that's beautiful about what you said, Nima, about the, that it was right near the part where when one German does arty, everybody does it. And it's that same thing, because if you've got a group of Americans, a group of Germans, a group of Indians, they'll be like, we could be like Hiraman was speaking, very diverse and argumentative, and just all of a sudden your energy is just like, versus coming together, like you said, as human beings, offering our lives to God, which is what Arti is. That's very beautiful association. Thank you. Raghu?
Yes.
I thought you were about to speak when I interrupted you.
No. I was just saying I vouch for that when Hiraman spoke.
How easy it is to come together and gossip or put down other people, versus the beauty of satsang is it's coming together to speak about godly things. So about the truth. Satsang.
It's so easy. You get drawn into some negative talking. It really takes high awareness all the time of what we're thinking and what we're saying. It is it's a great practice. Yes.
For me, the question of why am I going to even say this is often very helpful. Like, because if it's just make me look great or something, or to waste time, or to start a fight or something like that, far better for me to shut my mouth and do my mantra.
Sanjeev, your mic is on.
Hello?
Anybody else?
Well, just a reflection on that sentiment, to yes, overcome our negativity bias and also behold what is beautiful and working well, makes me wonder about many things that I would say are not going well in the world. When we look at the number of children starving, when we look at how the environment treated, there are many, many issues I think we can cite to say, actually, we haven't done so great as humanity. Mm-hmm. So it's to hold the two at the same time, say, recognize, yes, it's not to pull us down, but actually, how do we uplift ourselves to also accept the things that we have done wrong, that we all have done wrong, yes, to pull up and actually do something different about it. So it doesn't mean we negate the things that are wrong, and we don't find, bring all our diversity together to actually bring that into the light and make it better.
Exactly.
And I'm wondering how, sometimes with the religious teachings, especially kind of more on the Buddhist ways of acceptance, and there is that, and a lot of strength and power in that, but at the same time, not to fall into passivity that actually is dangerous and keeps change from happening, and actually keeps us from evolving to a better place of taking better care of each other and the planet. Yes. So I'm wondering maybe how those of you who spoke to that before, or anybody else really, how you're combining these, what can seem like sort of conflicting things at times, how you are finding a sense of unity between that.
Babaji spoke a lot about that, that not to let atrocities happen in the name of nonviolence. We need to step forward. For me, the difference is that, you set up a time to actually speak about that, but that people come in love and understanding of one another, that we are all one family and we have different views, and then point out those views and the solutions and the steps that we might take. So I think these are extremely important, what you're saying, Vandana, depending on where you are and what your field of endeavor is and how you work. I think these are very helpful. So I don't think Baba at all was saying that. And I think even the Dalai Lama has come out and said it's action, as being a good human being, not always just meditating. So that's my take on it. Somebody else?
Yeah, I'll just share a Catholic friend used to take me to the church when I was young. So I learned a small prayer over there. He said, God, grant me serenity to accept the things which I cannot change. God, grant me serenity to accept the things which I cannot change, and power to change the things which I can, power to change the things which I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That has stayed with me. I was a very young boy then. That's one. The other is there was a dialogue between Adi Guru Dattatreya and God Parshurama. God Parshurama was the student of Dattatreya. So Parshuram also put the same question as you have done, Vandana. He said, Dattatreya, that you cannot do absolute good or bad to this world. Nobody can do. You can do in a limited environment. He said, but there are millions of universes. Every human being creates the millions of billions of universes. He said, what you can do, you may not be able to make the entire universe right. But he said, in your own universe, start making the things right. Let's say if we live somewhere, we want to grow more trees. If we can make a difference to a life of one child in the education, small things. If we can make those small differences, we may not be able to, you have to be multi-billionaire to make the difference in the world with money, But the power of intent and little financial help, we can make small differences in our world. That's my personal experience.
Anybody else?
I think also, Vandana,
Go ahead, Hirman.
that what you're saying is true. And Babaji never wanted us to be passive, ever. He told me so many times, you're my warrior. And I've taken that to mean that we want to relentlessly fight for what is right, no matter what it costs us. And at the same time, if we can do that in a way that doesn't bring more confusion to that fight, like if we're angry, we can be determined without being angry. We can be clear without being passive. I think that's what it means to me. But you're completely right. There's so many things we need to change in the world, and we can't just, think that doing our mantra is going to cure everything. We got to be out there on the front line too.
Can I say something here?
Yeah, and I wanted to ask Vandana, where do you live, Vandana?
I live in the UK and in Germany.
Lovely, good. Because I just want to put a little commercial in now that next week we're going to shift to the later time of 10 o'clock in the morning here, which I think makes it 6 o'clock in Central Europe. We're going to have Gayatri Devi, who many of you met through the satsangs, who has a lot of beautiful, clear vision. And Marj DeVivo, who also met Babaji and has done a lot of online teaching that many of you may be familiar with. So the two of them are going to be sharing their journey. So I think it'll be a very beautiful satsang, but it is at the slightly later time. And the following week will be the final week of this round of satsangs. And we will have it at that later time again at 10 o'clock. And it's going to be, because with daylight savings changing and everything, it makes it even harder. I mean, right now, Raghavir is not the brightest color crown in the box because it's already close to 10 o'clock his time. But in a couple of weeks, it'll be more like 11 o'clock by this time with the change of time. So it's sort of, we've got to rethink things. So the final one will be on the 13th. It will be at the 10 o'clock time in America. And that, I think Puchari suggested, would be all of us sharing what we've learned, what we've taken from these satsangs, or just from our connection with Babaji or other things. So it'll be a beautiful time to share. And I think, Vandana, that I'm hoping that a woman, Bonnie Nixon, will be on. And I know she's extremely active around the world with many issues. And I look forward to hearing more of her stories and how she integrates that, because I think it is a balance to be able to be in our hearts with love and also see what needs to be done. And like Hiraman said, be determined. that this is what I feel the steps should be taken. So sorry, somebody else wanted to speak.
I have a question.
Okay, who's this? Oh, or
Yeah, I'm Shivani. Yeah, I'm sorry I was unable to respond earlier. My network was weak.
uh-huh.
So I am Shivani from Nainital, and I was planning to go to Herakan Ashram the next week.
Shivani, I'll message the number, my number. You can get in touch with me, and we will take it forward from there.
Right. So is RT-PCR or anything of the reporters needed
What I'll do, I'll just message the number over here. You have my number. You called me earlier, if I'm not wrong. So just get in touch with me. We'll help you with that.
Okay, right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good.
Okay.
More questions?
Ramloti, did you say that we are going to have the final satsang in 2 weeks, and are we going to stop? What does it mean?
We're taking a holiday break.
Okay.
It'll be Thanksgiving in America. It'll be Ramloti's time to go visit her grandchildren after 2 years. It'll also be Christmas and New Year's. So it just feels like maybe it's just time to, and it's all, like I said, I think in January we'll begin again, and hopefully
Okay.
Ramloti, I'll take leave now. I'll take your permission. Thank you so much for a beautiful satsang.
Namaste.
Good to see you, Sanjeev.
Same here, same here.
Very nice.
Brother.
Good night, brother.
Good night.
Good night, brother.
And if
Bole Baba ki jai. Love to all of you.
anything else that people would like to share or ask before we
Yes.
goodbye?
Can I speak in Loti?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Rupila. Bole Baba ki jai to everybody. And taking Vandana's query forward, that how does one balance oneself in this negativity all around and try to stay positive and follow Babaji's teachings and be the warriors that he wanted us to be? I just feel as a personal this thing, I simply feel that whatever you focus on increases. If you're going to keep on focusing on the negativity, that's exactly what is going to increase in your life. And like Sanjeev said, that there is not just one universe. There are many, many universes, and each one of us creates a mini universe around us, or a mini world around us, an individual world around us by our thoughts. And our thoughts have so much power. Each thought is so full of power that we are living actually in a world created by our own thoughts. So if we keep our thoughts positive, if we focus on being able to do whatever we can do on the positive front, helping in whatever way we can, keeping our vibrations high by the japa, that is what the planet needs, I feel, at the moment. That is what the environment needs at the moment, is positivity. And each one of us can contribute immensely by just keeping our vibrations high. Everything around us just kind of comes in a state of upliftment if we are in a state of happiness. And if we are in a calmer space, and that comes only from complete faith and positive surrender towards Babaji and his teachings. And having full faith that, yes, he's there behind us. All that we need to do is put in our best in every day, and the rest will be taken care of. So I just feel that that has given, that is what gives me immense strength, and that is what gives me all the positivity that is required to go through the day happily and with full faith. And I'm sure that's one way where we can just progress. Keeping our it's very, very important, I feel, to keep our vibrations high, being Babaji's followers. And it's just being in a happy state. We are doing immense benefit to the universe by just staying happy. And then you'll be able to do as much karma yoga as you can. And you don't have to think of doing a big job on a big scale, changing the world in, whatever. It sounds very, it sounds like a huge project to change the world. But yes, you can change your world by doing like tiny things, helping people around you, your neighbors, offering help to anybody on the street, old people, children, and just passing a smile to everybody as you walk along. I think that also goes a big way in uplifting the vibration.
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Where do you live, how do you say your name?
My name, you pronounce the Indian currency, rupee, and just add LA to it, so it's Rupila.
Rupila. And where do you live, Rupila?
I am living in India at the moment, and it's a place in UP, in central India. It's towards the Nepal border. I'm very close to the Nepal border.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's wonderful to have you.
And I'm just digressing from the whole conversation, because I just have to tell you about this incident that I was in Canada visiting my son, and there was this one time that I had I was doing my Herakhandi Sapshati part, and I needed the explanation of a few particular lines in the translation of those in English or Hindi or whatever. I was looking desperately for those. And I prayed to Babaji that I didn't carry my book of translations. I just carried my mini Herakhandi Sapshati part book with me. And when I was in Canada, I just switched on the YouTube, and out of the blue, Ramloti, your English Herakhandi Sapshati came on, and I was absolutely stunned that I didn't do anything. I didn't put on any particular thing, and that's what came on. And it was as if it was the biggest gift to me in that moment. And I can't thank you enough for uploading that. I think I've written it in the message as well below it, but that was magical for me. And I have to give you compliments from my heart for the way you do the Shringar on Ma, the way you dress her up, the way you beautify her. It's as if she just lights up, and that lit up my life.
Thank you. And that's a good point, that we just never know who we touch by doing small things like putting something up on YouTube. So everyone keep it up, and we look forward to being with you all in next week at a later time. Sorry, in India, it'll probably be 10:30 or 9:30 at night, something like that. But anyways, Bole Baba Ki Jai.
Bole Baba Ki Jai. I'll join it. Bole Baba Ki Jai. It was lovely being with you all. And now I'll have to take leave. Bole Baba Ki Jai, everybody. Raghu, it was really nice seeing you here after so many years.
Bole Baba.
Bole Baba Ki Jai.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.